Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter for boxing-related tweets, or you can subscribe to the channel to get notifications whenever a video is uploaded. While the rest of the UK is listening to Boris's propaganda, I thought I'd bring you guys a video. Let's talk boxing. It's going to be a very technical, probably quite a long video. It's going to bore the life out of people that are not really hardcore boxing fans, that are interested in the technical aspect of the game. I haven't done a really in-depth technical video for a while. I'm going to bring this one to you, particularly because it's about George Kambosos and Lee Selby. They're not really sort of elite level names. Kambosos on his way up, 18-0, has looked very good so far. Lee Selby obviously has had some tough moments, but we know he's operated at a very high level. Former world champion, a very, very good featherweight, now operating at lightweight. So he's known in the sport, but they're not elite names. So I know a lot of you might get turned off by this. For those of you that do stick around, hopefully I can entertain a few of you, and hopefully I can shed some light on this brilliant undercard fight tomorrow night. I think it might even be a co-main event, if I'm not mistaken, or it might be chief support. I'm not sure, but it's a brilliant fight. It's on the undercard. It's the fight before Derek Chisora and Alexander Usyk. So let's talk about this. In terms of George Kambosos, there are a lot of pros to his game. There are some cons. His best win is Mickey Bay, which was in the last fight that he had. Mickey Bay obviously is a brilliant fighter, very, very, very talented fighter. Never achieved his full potential, in my opinion. He was Floyd's pride and joy. He was Floyd really, really rated this kid, and he became a world champion. And then he fought Eric Molina. He was winning every second of the fight, and then he got caught in the last round and got knocked out. But it was a dominant performance. You know, if you remember when Martinez fought Chavez Jr., Martinez was winning every second of the fight until the last round when Chavez caught him and Sergio had to hold on. Imagine instead of holding on, he'd got knocked out. Well, that wouldn't have lessened the level of Martinez. It was just one of those things. And that's what happened with Mickey Bay. There's no real doubt that he's a superior fighter to Eric Molina. But he lost that fight and lost his title. And never really reached the heights that he should have reached as a fighter. But he's a very, very talented fighter, sharpshooter, fast hands, varies the shot, the jab from upstairs to downstairs, some good upper body movement. Typical, really, from what you'd expect from a money team, a TMT fighter. And it was a big step up for George Kambosos because he hadn't operated at that level before. I had brought you a video in the past, which I'll put in the description here, under the Prospect Watch series that I wanted to do before, you know, a whole bunch of other stuff came up in life, bereavement in the family, then the lockdowns. I never continued it, but I will start that again. But that was one video I did bring where I was talking about a fighter that I believed would get to world level. He's at world level now. He's this is essentially like the semi-final of a World Cup or a Champions League. The winner of this fight will becomes a mandatory for Teofimo Lopez and all the belts. Now, if Teofimo obviously vacates or moves up a division, then these guys will fight. The winner of this fight will fight for a vacant title. So it's a huge, huge fight. So he's at world level. He's ranked number 3 in the world. I believe it's by the WBC. But it's one of the sanctioning bodies. BoxRec have Kambosos ranked at 17. But again, it's not always a case of where you're ranked. Your ability isn't always sort of reflected by your ranking, because your ranking is determined by who you've already fought. Now, we'll talk about where he still needs to develop, and we'll talk about whether this has come too early for him, because they weren't looking for an opponent of the level of Mickey Bay. And when it came up, they thought, okay, let's just take this. So initially, they were looking for somebody who's at the lower levels, which means that they're still looking to develop him. Kambosos was the chief sparring partner for Manny Pacquiao on 3 separate occasions, 3 separate camps. And Manny told him that he sees a lot of himself in a young Kambosos. Now, stylistically, they're very different. But I think what he meant by that, Manny, is that sort of never say die attitude, that real winner's mentality. He was the chief sparring partner for the Broner fight and the Matisse fights, and one other camp, which I can't remember which one it was. But he sparred top-level guys as well, apart from Pacquiao, Klimov, Lipinets, Beltran, Jose Ramirez. He's been in there with a lot of guys, and from all reports that I've heard, he did very, very well against all of these guys. And he's particularly proud of that, because oftentimes what will happen is that you'll have quite fresh sparring partners coming in, and it will be the champion who sort of does back-to-back rounds against these guys to really push himself. Well, Kambosos was doing 5 rounds a piece back-to-back, so he was doing 10 rounds. So he might do 5 rounds against Klimov, and immediately Lipinets would get in and he'd do another 5 rounds straight away. So the fact that he was handling himself so well against these guys is what led to him really leaving Australia, moving to the US. He's based out of Miami now, and this is his big opportunity. But has it come too early? Let's talk about some of the things he does well and some of the things that he needs to improve on. Firstly, he's got very, very fast hands. And one thing he's very good at, he punches immediately after he's being punched. So he's almost like an intelligent pressure fighter, as Chris Algieri calls him, in that he's always there with his body, his feet. He's always trying to get you to feel that pressure. But he's not just wailing in shots. This is not about volume. This is about trying to put pressure on you with his feet, with his presence. And when you make a move, he'll make a move. So Dillian Whyte is very good at doing this. If you jab Whyte, he'll come up with something as you jab. Joe Louis, of course. Joe Louis was brilliant at doing this, okay? And this is what he looks to do. And because he looks like he has a very solid chin and he has got these very fast hands, he's very confident in taking that sort of approach. His best punch, which I also mentioned in the Prospect Watch video, which, like I said, I'll put in the description, you can check that out, is his right-handed uppercut. It's a beautiful shot. He used to throw it way too much, okay? And I said that in the Prospect Watch video. He didn't disguise it because he'd throw it as much as another fighter throws a straight right hand. And eventually you can just have a bar across the bottom of your chin as you're coming in, and to protect yourself from that. And so, because it's the shots that you don't see coming that will knock you out or hurt you, and often an uppercut is a shot that you don't see coming because it comes through a blind line, often under your own jab or something like that, it can be a devastating shot. And so for me, I've always said he needs to hide it more. And he did hide it against Mickey Bey. And that was the shot that led to the knockdown that he scored in the 12th round. He won via split decision, officially speaking. One judge, though, had him winning by 5 rounds. Another judge, I think, had him winning by 3. I saw the fight. I thought he won it by 3 or 4 points as well. The judge that scored it to Mickey Bey had it to Bey by 1 round. Very controversial. But although it was controversial, I wouldn't have said it was like this robbery type position from the judge, because Mickey Bey won the first 2 rounds. It was a 10-round fight. Mickey Bey won the first 2 rounds. And then although Kambosos, I felt, was edging a lot of the middle rounds, there were a couple of middle rounds which were tit for tat. So if he's then scored these middle rounds to Mickey Bey, I don't know. I mean, with the knockdown for Kambosos as well, I struggle to see how you give it to Bey. But, you know, there were some tit for tat rounds in there. But he handled himself very well. He changes the levels with his jab well. One thing he does as well, when he's on the inside, he's very good at creating space for himself. Often he'll put his head into your chest and put his feet quite far back, so he can create that space to go for body shots, and he's good with a left hook to the body in that regard. But the other thing he does very well is that he'll throw these looping hooks from that position when you're not expecting him to be able to release his hands to throw a punch, and they're difficult to read in terms of the trajectory. Think someone like James DeGale. James DeGale was very good at doing this. He'd throw a shot from a very wide angle, a looping shot that would come around, and a traditional sort of fighter who's ready for tight hooks up close wouldn't really be ready for it. So these are his strengths. He's got a great engine as well. He's in terrific condition all the time. His nickname is Ferocious, and you can see why, because if he has to be ferocious and really up the tempo, he can do that. There are some cons to his game, though. I thought that he allowed Mickey Bey often to control the tempo when he needed to up the tempo, and against somebody like Lee Selby, he's going to need to keep that tempo high. So he's not going to want Lee Selby to control the tempo, because what Lee Selby is going to want to do, and what he likes to do, is get on his toes, dance around the ring, and push you away with that long rangy jab, keep you off balance, and then drop the right hand in when you're starting to overcommit. And he's a very good mover, Lee Selby. Sometimes he can get caught up against the ropes, and he doesn't have the best power in the world, but as a boxer, sort of mover, he's a very, very effective fighter, very difficult to pin down. And one of the things that he had some issues with early, Kambosos, in the fight, was the movement, the upper body movement of Mickey Bey. So it'll be interesting to see how Kambosos is able to overcome that by finding the target quite early. He adjusted against Mickey Bey, and he was starting to target the body more, and then he got his timing on point too. So he was landing some big shots. The left hook, sometimes he has a tendency to telegraph the left hook. He turns his whole body into it, and he can miss it because he's throwing it from a low position as well. He won't throw a tight one. He won't even throw it wide necessarily. He'll drop his left hand, almost like a Tyson Fury hook, which I'm not a fan of, to be honest with you. And he'll then twist his whole body into it. Sometimes it can be telegraphed. And when you're telegraphing that shot, you saw Mickey Bey ducking under it quite often. A guy like Lee Selby is going to be moving away from that and avoiding that. So he's going to have to make sure that he tightens things up a little bit. But he did find that rhythm, and he did find that range. And he's quite a jerky sort of fighter, which makes him a little bit difficult to read, something that Chris Algieri referred to as organized chaos. So he's a chaotic fighter that excels in chaos, but he's not sloppy chaotic. It's not like Maidana. Sometimes you're watching Maidana and it's chaos and his arms are coming from all over the place. Or you know, you see certain fighters, it's just like almost like a brawl and it's sloppy. You don't get that with Kambosos. I'm not sure I agree that it's chaotic per se. It's more of a case of like a hurricane. He can up the gears quite quickly. But like I said, this is an increased level, and for a guy who's moving like that, it could be a problem for him, particularly because he likes to walk in. Sometimes one of the weaknesses he has is that he walks in range without much lateral head movement, and he doesn't always come in at an angle. This was particularly the case early in the Mickey Bey fight. And when that happens, when he's walking in straight lines and his head's not moving, he's obviously going to be quite easy to catch with straight shots. This is important because, like I said, Lee Selby he's got a nice left hook as well, Lee Selby, but really he's all about that straight left jab followed by a straight right hand. He wants to keep you at bay. So Kambosos is going to have to be very good at being evasive. He's going to have to improve on that to work his way in. When he is evasive, often with straight punches, what tends to happen is that he's evasive when he's retreating. And so because he's retreating, he's not always necessarily in a position to punish his opponent. So he might make you miss, but then he's not there to counter you. He does seem to see wide shots very well, and you'll see him step back from a hook and then counter the hooker, which is very good. But with straight shots, sometimes maybe it's an eagerness to get into range, I don't know, but he walks in straight lines and can get caught with straight shots. He has a good chin, but against a mover who's taller than him with a rangy reach like Selby, don't believe the box rec height and reach stuff here. Go and watch the weigh-in. Selby's definitely the taller man. This was referenced as well between the two of them when they were talking about a sparring session that occurred in the past. Selby is considerably taller than Kambosos. They have sparred in the past 4 rounds. It was interesting the way they spoke about this because Kambosos is a really good talker. Okay, a really good talker. He's very confident. He's got that look in his eye of this natural aggression. You can see that this is a kid that loves to fight. Selby's more that cheeky chappy, sort of smiley, a different style, almost arrogant. They've both got an arrogance to them, but it's a different type of arrogance. It's a different type of ego. And Selby was talking about that. They were asked what happened in sparring, and Selby was saying, you know, that he just handled him basically, and Kambosos was denying that and saying that's not what happened at all. Selby ran the whole time. He didn't want to have any of it, and that was back in 2017. In 3 years, Kambosos is saying he's developed an awful lot, and that the fight's completely different, and that was 4 rounds, not 12 rounds. So he's going to be looking to put the pressure on, but it seems to suggest, and I hate it when a pressure fighter says a guy ran. The ring is the size of a ring for a reason. You're allowed to use it. If the other guy's moving, it's your job to go and shut him down. It's not, boxing's not about a phone box. Boxing's about a telephone. It's not about a telephone box. It's about a ring. So you've got to learn to use those whole dynamics. Now, one of the problems he has, one of the cons he has, is that when he's moving to his left, Kambosos, his back right leg will often cross the line of his left leg. Okay, now one of the problems with that is balance. In other words, he's twisting his body too much. The other one is that you don't shift across as quickly. He's sort of stepping across almost like walking backwards to cut off the ring. Because he's quite fast, he's able to get away with it up to now. But for a guy who's going to keep changing that movement on him, I'm wondering whether he's going to struggle to pin Lee Selby down. And then is he going to come out again post-fight and say, well, he ran? You know, he's going to have to try and up the pressure early, and he's promised he will do that. He promised that he's going to drown Lee Selby. So it'll be interesting to see how this fight. It's a great clash of styles. It could end up being a really, really engaging, good fight. But because Kambosos can be patient, I reckon early on it could end up being one of those things where Lee Selby's trying to lead with the jab and Kambosos is trying to quickly counter with his own fast shots. You're going to see those fast hands come into play, and it's going to be quite a bit of a chess match, I believe, in the first few rounds, and then Kambosos will start letting his hands go and it'll be interesting. But like I said, he cannot allow Selby to control the tempo in the way that he allowed Mickey Bey to control the tempo early on. Kambosos is going to have to be the one who's going to be very active and make those things happen. What else is there? Oh, his left hand, like I said, he's got a fast jab. It's a fast jab. It's not a thudding jab. It's a fast jab, a peppering jab. His left hook to the body up close and to the head up close is very good. Sometimes he can telegraph it, but it's a crisp shot when he lands it. The right hand, straight right hand, I think is a little bit underdeveloped. He landed a really nice straight right hand on Mickey Bey in the first fight, his last fight, but it's not a thudding right hand, whereas his uppercut is beautiful. And I think that's why he tends to like that combination of a left jab, uppercut, duck, left hook. He likes that combination. For whatever reason, that right hand isn't this booming right hand. I still would want to see him utilize it more. Get a guy to forget about the fact that your uppercut is such a big shot, especially against a guy who fights tall, like Lee Selby. You might not get the opportunity for that many uppercuts. You know, Mickey Bey's a guy that dips at the hip like Mayweather and a lot of other fighters from that stable. So that's something he's going to have to look out for. Is he going to be able to bring his best punch into the game for this fight? If you are going to go back and watch the Mickey Bey fight, watch the whole fight, really good fight, but you're probably not going to get to do that now before this fight occurs. Watch round 7 though. Really, really interesting round. You could see how the movement gave Kambosos problems. He couldn't quite pin him down, but you also saw how aggressive he can be. And when he did land a big left hook and a right hook to the body, he had an effect. So you can see from that round how this fight could end up being a real barn burner. Let me know what you think, guys. If I had to pick a winner, it's weird. If this fight happened in 2-3 fights time, I would be picking Kambosos. I'm just not sure whether they've rushed it a little bit too much. The Mickey Bey fight was rushed compared to what they wanted. They were looking for a lesser fighter than Bey. Then they got Bey. Then they got the opportunity for a world title eliminator. They haven't turned it down. He's 18-0. If he wins this, he's fighting for all the belts, undisputed potentially, on his 20th fight. To me, that's early. So he's taking big jumps, right? And there are still, like I've said, spoken about this, areas he needs to develop. I don't know. I'm on the fence. It could go either way. It's going to be a terrific fight. If I had to pick, I'd probably go Kambosos, but I can see a method in which it becomes a mismatch in favor of Lee Selby. I don't think it's basically if Kambosos is going to beat him, Kambosos is going to have his timing on point, apply that pressure, land with his fast hands and really break him down and hurt Lee Selby and start to put him in an area he doesn't want to be in. And Lee Selby's got some heart. He's a warrior. We've seen that in the Ricky Burns fight. You know, he's not a quitter. But if Lee Selby's going to win the fight, it could simply be because of Kambosos' some of the question marks I have about his footwork, because he's the shorter guy, because the upper body movement at times gave him problems against Mickey Bey. In fairness to him, he figured that pattern out, but at times it gave him problems. It could just be that he can't get to Selby as much as he likes. Let me know what you think, guys. How's this fight going to go? I'm going to bring you, of course, a post-fight video for this fight and for Usyk. One thing about the Usyk weigh-in, I'm going to act, a little bit of psychological amateur hour here. No doubt about it. I'm not making out like I'm a Darren Brown or anything like that. But one thing that struck me is that when Chisora was in Usyk's face talking, you could see Usyk took half a step back. There's one point where he takes half a step back. To me, psychologically, it shows that he doesn't like someone in his space. And you can see that. I mean, this is talk of Chisora wants to get on his chest. There was just a little something there that told me Usyk doesn't like this. He didn't want to be so close to him. And that's going to be reflected in his boxing style, which makes it very interesting if Chisora can get on the inside. I still think Usyk will win the fight. Based on the fact that Chisora, I believe, is going to keep on coming consistently. Listen, if I only had one bet and I had to bet everything I had, I'm going to say Usyk points. But like I said in the preview video, I think Usyk might stop him because I think this is a massive fight for Chisora, and I think he's going to keep coming and walk onto straight left shots and uppercuts quite consistently. And I don't think Usyk's a one-punch knockout artist based on the fact that he's on his toes a lot and he's throwing counter shots. He doesn't plant his feet, but I can imagine him eating so much that it accumulates over time, and his corner might end up pulling him out. Let me know what you guys think about these two fights, how you think they're going to go, especially Kambosos, obviously, because you guys have left your opinions on the other fight, and I appreciate that so much. And I'll chat to you guys soon. Take care. God bless.